the Popcorn Counter, everybody. My name's Andres Lorente.
And I'm James Rizika. I'm glad you caught us at the Popcorn Counter. We've just come out of watching Dogtooth.
Was there a book for that? Did I miss? I should have read the book.
When you walk out of a film with a good ending, kind of somehow sends you out of the theatre, kind of just humming. I think just kind of not necessarily singing the theme song, but just kind of vibrating with that satisfying feeling of tension which has been resolved. And when you see a film that doesn't quite stick the ending, I end up just kind of walking out feeling somehow unsatisfied and on edge. And something that feeling of being on edge sticks with me for hours and hours. And today I think we're going to be on edge. I'm going to be on edge for the rest of the weekend. Yeah. So a spoiler alert. I haven't brought the spoiler bell to the Popcorn Counter, which is bad. But okay, if you have not seen the 2009 film by Yorgos Lanthimos called Dogtooth, then I'm going to spoil it for you. At the end of the movie,
ding 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 ding. You got to see something.
That'll have to do. There's a character who's been trapped in a house for the entire duration of the film, climbs into the trunk of her father's car and is driven out of the house, but the camera just lingers on the trunk and you never find out whether she is still alive in there and about to open the trunk or whether she has died. It's left ambiguous, and these kinds of ambiguous endings, they just wind me up a little bit. But that said, endings are hard. Do you find endings hard?
No. Not at all.
I'm always glad to be proved wrong.
I'm going to agree with you. I think like an incomplete ending bugs me because there's some films that I want to take home with me and think about and all that. But most films, I just want the story to be complete, really tied up nicely. That's the denouement where they untie everything and the story is there for you to see in its entirety. That's what I want. The reason I don't find them hard is because that's usually the way I start. I know that final image before I sit down. It's a teacher thing. I'm thinking about the final project or the final exam before I start the unit so that I know to build up to it, you see. So you don't have to necessarily think backwards. You just have to know where you are going so that you can build up to that. So for me, it's a cardinal sin to have an unclear ending. And I know sometimes it's nice to leave possibility out there, but I don't think you want to leave too much for the viewer to guess. If you've got a message, you've got to tell that message completely, and then they know what that film was about, and they know how it ended, and they can go back to their lives. It's cruel and unusual punishment to send home a viewer with some incomplete, non-concrete idea of what your film was about.
So now they need to teach this in every film school across the world, don't they? Because I feel like the emphasis is so heavily on those initial 10 pages. People feel, you'll never get your project off the ground if you don't have a great initial 10 pages, and people all put all of their energy into that initial 10 pages. And I know for sure that there have been plenty of projects where people have greenlit it before they've got to the end of the script. I know when we wrote Waiting, we had two producers on that project, and the first producer who picked it up, she told me, I was presented with this script, and by the time I got halfway through it, I said, right, we're making this film. And you kind of think, well, that's great. It's a lovely thing to hear. It's a very nice thing for you to say. I'm delighted that you've said that, but wouldn't it also be polite to finish the script before writing the check? Maybe this is one of the problems with the business in general. People don't like to read.
Yes.
If you've made it to the first, to the midpoint, if you made it for the first half of the film, then maybe you feel you deserve a medal, and you've got other things to do with your day now. So, let's move on. Whereas, thinking of the end before you start writing the beginning is the exact solution that we should be encouraging everybody to take.
Yeah, I think for me, and I'm not a mathematician, but it's simple geometry. You put two dots on a piece of paper. One's A, you can start there, and then one's B, and then you start drawing the line in between the 2 points, and you got to end up at B, folks.
You got to end up at B.
Otherwise, you don't have a line.
A lot of people don't know what B is, or people figure out what B is, after they've already filmed the first 2/3 of the line. Sometimes that ambiguity kind of works because it sticks in the mind. I know we've talked before about Limbo, the John Sayles film from 1990. David Strathairn is a guy who's kind of caught up in a drug deal, And he and the love interest, I can't remember who it is. It might be Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. They are sort of stranded on a little island near Alaska. And as they watch, there's a little biplane which is circling the island, coming into land. And they don't know whether the biplane is the Coast Guard who will rescue them or the drug dealers who will come and kill them. And that the film just leaves you in that kind of that limbo. That's what the whole film is named after. You don't know the future and you don't know the ending, and you have to walk out of the theatre and it sticks in your mind. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the next 3 minutes and at least got an answer, but not everybody ends up doing that.
What a well-titled film, then.
At least they were telling you, they were giving me the answer on the poster there. I should have known, shouldn't I? I should have known.
Ew, that's brutal for me. Yeah, I definitely... You want to know if the protagonists meet the fate that they deserve or not, so maybe they deserve to be gunned down by the drug dealers. I don't know, because I haven't seen the film that I remember anyway. And then, or maybe they deserve to be rescued, and it's hard to just leave them in limbo like that.
Yeah. The alternative to that is that you put the ending of the film on the poster. The most famous example of which I can think of, where the ending of the film, the very last shot of the film, the last 3 or 4 frames of the film are on the poster, and they're also on the book, which became the film. I'm thinking of, can you guess what I'm thinking of?
I can't, no.
It's Planet of the Apes.
Oh, yeah, well, that's kind of a mistake because you don't want to give away that much. Are you talking about the original Planet of the Apes?
The original Planet of the Apes, the Kirk Douglas Planet of the Apes. No, it's not Kirk Douglas, is it? It's Charlton. Is it Charlton Heston? Who is it?
It is Charlton Heston. Yes,
Charlton Heston. I apologise, Kirk. Certainly the poster that I've seen of Planet of the Apes is that very last shot of. The Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And it's a great shot and it's a very memorable picture. It's fantastic. And it does explain in a single image what the whole film is about.
Yeah.
But it does also give away that great last surprise.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It seems kind of insane, but you know what? It probably got bums on seats. Yeah. So I guess it probably did the trick.
Damn you all to hell. Fortunately, I did not see the poster or read the book. That's why you don't read the books, folks. Don't do as James does. Don't read the book.
I have read the book of Planet of the Apes. It's a slim little book. It's great fun, actually. Good fun.
That is a great ending. I think that is a great ending. And it does, it captures so much of the story and tells you all you need to know. So, I think it's a mistake to put on the poster or the book cover, but good ending.
Good ending.
Birdman? Do you remember Birdman?
Now, what happens in Birdman? So that is...
It's Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, that's it, yeah.
Sort of a superhero actor or whatnot. He's doing a theater piece. It's late in his career. Emma Stone is his daughter. I think in the opening image, he's actually hovering. He's like meditating, and I think he's hovering. So you think that he has superpowers. Then you go through the film. It's very banal, everyday life. He's just an actor. He's not really into it or good at it. And the very last scene, I think he jumps out of the window. So there's not this idea of whether he died or he leaves the room. And then Emma Stone's his daughter. She runs to the window to see what's happened to him. And she's looking up at the sky, and it seems like he's flying around. Or is he flying to heaven because he's smashed to the sidewalk and dead? Or... and did he actually float in that room at the very beginning, or did he have any superpowers? There's just so much that's just not resolved, and I think that's why it was frustrating for me. It's pretty interesting film because again, in the style, it's wonderful. So there are a lot of long takes where he's just pulling this camera through this theater and going one from scene to the next, and one from rehearsal to a performance to backstage antics. So it's a really interesting film,
and it's largely a gag on Michael Keaton getting his big break as playing Batman, I presume, isn't it?
I think so. So it's also sort of self-referential, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me. And it wasn't a great enough film where I really worried about it for very long. So I didn't go home thinking, oh, I wish I had a better ending or whatever. I just remember thinking, oh, that happened. That was a couple hours of my life. Clever stuff, and then not a clever ending. So,
can you think of any films where they really have utterly nailed the ending? Where he walked out, where those last 3 minutes, are a genuine climax that explain the whole film and leave me, buzzing, throbbing with kind of excitement and satisfaction.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the last 7 or 10 seconds of North by Northwest. I think it's just there are probably 6 or 7 cuts there that resolve everything and take you into Cary Grant. Is that Grace Kelly? I think it's Grace Kelly's, or is that
just Eva Marie Saint?
Eva Marie Saint. It takes it right into their next life with sexual innuendo to boot. I mean, as the train enters the tunnel, the film ends, and in the 10 seconds before that, you've seen the bad guy fall off the mountain after a very tense moment with Cary Grant. You get a gunshot from across Mount Rushmore. The microfiche has been rediscovered and fallen into good hands, and everyone's happy and safe, and then they're in love and they're going on a train ride together. Like seconds, and a lot of resolution in just a matter of seconds, and it's fantastic. So
yeah,
I think that's kind of like the trademark ending of a film, I believe.
Yeah, it is a great ending, actually, isn't it? It's a real kind of I'm not wasting your time, I'm giving you a bit of credit ending, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Hitchcock letting the audience join a few of the dots.
Yeah. How about yourself? Can you think of another one?
My great ending that I kind of quote. This is one from an actor friend of mine who kind of recommended this film, which I'd never seen. He was so outraged I'd never seen it that he gave me the DVD and I bought it for me. He said, "You've got to watch this," which is The Long Good Friday. Oh, yeah. Which is it's Bob Hoskins' film.
It is Bob Hoskins. Helen Mirren's in that film too, I think.
Yeah, I think she is. Yeah. So it's a London gangster film.
Yeah.
And I think a very young Pierce Brosnan is in it, I think, as a kind of Irish terrorist or gangster or something like that. But my friend was telling me how that he thinks the final scene, the final shot of the movie is an absolute masterclass, because Bob Hoskins has been, he's been trying to kind of outwit his enemies through the whole film, and then at the very end of the film he's picked up by someone in a car, and he gets in the car and it's not the person driving the car that he thought it would be, and he realizes that he's been played. But the whole story is kind of played out on Bob Hoskins's face. You just have a shot of his face in the back of the car, and you see his initial surprise, and you can watch his face as he pieces it all together. And realizes that he's in terrible trouble, and then he realizes, oh wow, they've played that really skillfully. Yeah. I should have spotted that, and I didn't. And I've been outmaneuvered here, but I've got to hand it to you. And he does all of that, without saying a single word. It just plays out on his face. You see him go through 5 or 6 different stages of realization. It's a great little scene, and it wraps up the entire story very neatly. And you do it without any words or anyone explaining, oh, it was this, really, it was that guy. You should have got in this car. There's nothing like that. It's just Bob Hoskins' face, but It's a great little scene. Very clever little way to end the film.
Yeah. Obviously, if you can do it visually, all the better. I find that if there's a bunch of explanation that comes at the end of the film, you're definitely in trouble, because that means that not even the filmmakers understood it. So someone had to go in there and do an explanation scene at the very end. So that's never a good sign. So, those classic ones of a couple of people walking off into the sunset, well, that ain't so bad, because that's where you want to end it up, where you can just do the ending with an image. And even like Maverick, as shameful as I am bringing that in, but they're working on a plane together. It's a big hangar, and this family has reunited to a certain extent. And you've got community, and you've got sunset and mountains and airplanes flying overhead. And it's like, yeah, that's where that film needs to end, and they ended it there.
It's like that classic thing of you start out with a character who has a need. And then the story is them trying to fulfill that need, or finding that they can't fulfill that need, and that's exactly what happens to Maverick in the film. That's how it works. Yeah. That's why you get a satisfying resolution at the end. Yeah. Another film that kind of cleverly summarizes its own kind of themes right at the very end is Fight Club. I haven't seen Fight Club for many years. I know we've talked about it a couple of times on the pod. I must go back and actually sit down and watch it. But that very, very final shot with Edward Norton holding hands with Helena Bonham Carter, isn't it? That's it. Yep. As all the skyscrapers get blown up around them. Yeah. Who could have predicted that 2 years later the image of skyscrapers being blown up wasn't the sort of thing that people wanted to watch on a big screen?
Precisely.
But at the time, this was this kind of great subversive moment, and he just makes this little comment that you met me at a strange time in my life. Yeah. And somehow, that one moment, the combination of this one line of dialogue and the visuals of kind of the cityscape changing, summarizes kind of the theme and the notion of the whole film. They've managed to compress it into that single take. It's exactly the right ending for the film. It's skillfully done.
Disturbing too. I mean, it's a disturbing film, and it comes at this point where you finally realize that the Brad Pitt character doesn't really exist outside of his own consciousness too. So it's you're still. I think the thing I like about that ending is you're still sort of in this moment of disbelief. It's like, this couldn't possibly be happening. Where's Brad Pitt? He's the one who's really causing all the mayhem. So I think they get away with it for exactly that reason, is that it's still possibly the impossible somehow. I'm just going to mention one film, the ending for which I hated so passionately. It's the Libertine, which I talked to you a little bit about off pod.
So I remember being given this script to read when we were at film school, and I'm not being very impressed. But I have never seen the actual film.
Oh, oof. Johnny Depp's in there, John Malkovich, Rosamund Pike, I think. It's pretty bad. I think maybe that's what makes the ending so bad, is that it's already kind of a bad film. And I think, again, I was offended because it's Sir John Wilmot, the Earl of Rochester. It's sort of a biopic about this very kind of libidinous. He's probably 18th century, I guess, 1700s poet who was very almost pornographic at times, very, very ribald and risque writer. And they make his life really boring, but he basically, drunk and whored his way through his life, and he's just being overtaken by syphilis. He barely has a nose by the very end. And the problem really is that Johnny Depp is not very good, and he's got this.
Sorry, is that the end of the explanation? It's just Johnny Depp is not very good.
Well, it's. I think I know why. I know why he made it. It seems like a Johnny Depp role at the time. This is a bad boy, and kind of historical, and it's right around the whole Pirates of the Caribbean. So he just kind of recycles his accent a little bit. But at the end of the film, he's just staring at the camera. He's done all this libidinous stuff and debaucherous stuff, and you don't really like him. It's true, and he just stares at the camera, and he just keeps saying again and again with some modulation in the voice. He says, "How do you like me now? How do you like me now? How do you like me now?" He just says this again and again and again, and it's awful. And maybe it's a bad ending, but maybe it's the ending that film deserved. And it's stuck with me for a long time because I actually liked Wilmot's poetry. He was one of these guys I really paid a lot of attention to in university. And they kind of ruined his life. And then maybe ruined Johnny Depp's career too. I don't know where it goes south, but around that time. Ooh. So you read the script. You probably were unimpressed enough to not see the film, and then saved yourself that time.
Yeah, I can remember nothing about the script at all, actually. I think I don't know whether that gives you an indication of how bad I am at reading scripts. I'm not sure I can point the finger and say, "Oh, people don't read." Clearly, I don't read either. I'm gonna just bring up one. I made a little list because I knew we would be talking about endings, but I'm not going to talk about them all. I am going to just talk about one other ending, which I think is pretty spectacularly great.
Okay.
Even though I'm not entirely sure what the ending means, I don't think anybody who's watched the film knows what the ending means. And I know from having read interviews with the director that they also weren't prepared to be drawn on what the ending meant. But the ending I'm thinking of is an illuminated fetus looking down at an enormous planet Earth.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of 2001.
Yeah.
There's that kind of final, it's probably 30 minutes, isn't it? The final act of 2001.
Yeah.
You get this kind of amazing sort of visual panorama of Doug Trumbull's kind of lighting effects.
Yeah.
As Keir Dullea travels across dimensions. And then I showed it to the children fairly recently, actually, just for like the final 8 minutes of the film. Because it's only about 7 shots, I think. It's very, very economically told.
Yeah.
This little story of Keir Dullea getting out of the escape capsule from the spaceship, and then he sees himself a few years in the future again and again and again. Yeah. And eventually he's looking at himself dying in bed, and then you cut to this kind of baby looking at the Earth.
Yeah.
And it's utterly unexplained, and yet also somehow manages to encapsulate everything that has gone before it. This is a film which kind of glosses over the entire history of the human race and yet encompasses it, within a single cut.
Yeah.
It's a film which is, about the infinite. And how do you end that? And so you kind of end it with this ambiguous and visually arresting, but sort of without content shot of a baby and the Earth. And it's not clear whether you're supposed to think, is the baby nearby? Is the baby the same size as the Earth?
Yeah.
Is the baby imagining the Earth? Is the Earth imagining the baby? Are we seeing two different things and just being told they are similar? And I can remember reading about the making of this sequence and them having this really big problem because the baby was made out of fiberglass and rubber and silicone or something like that and just looked absolutely terrible.
Oh, wow.
And they kind of went to great lengths to try and get the baby to blink its eyes or move its hand a bit, and it just looked absolutely terrible. So they had to light it from within and from behind, so that you couldn't really see many details on the baby.
Yeah.
And a little bit like Spielberg's story about Jaws, the fact that the shark was so bad they couldn't show it. I think this is part of the reason why the ending of 2001 works so well. The baby was actually so bad and weird that they kind of couldn't really show it to you in a naturalistic way, and it ends up seeming kind of dreamlike and otherworldly. I think it's remarkable. It's kind of utterly devoid of meaning and yet also summarizes the whole film. It's just genius.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think for me, the meaning's all right there. It's just that life ends in the beginning of the next life, and that that baby could even stand in for the planet, which was 4 billion years old when Kubrick made the film, still about 4 billion years old, and still sort of an infinite self. There's a lot of life to follow us, I think, and I love the fact that film works on such a grand scale that seeing something so tiny, think of the size of that fetus in reality, something so tiny in space can represent a next generation, a next adventure for all of humanity, and it's just a tiny little part of the whole universe. I think that ending nails it entirely. So for me, that's just a great ending. I don't find it ambiguous at all. You definitely have to think on a different time scale to really appreciate that ending. I think is that we are just a blip, and there are going to be a lot more blips until it adds up to this big bang again. And I like that ending. Yeah, that's good.
I'm afraid I'm now going to spoil that ending for you because as part of my membership of the Two Real Cinema Club book club, I read as a boy the Marvel Comics adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
So the whole film was then turned into a comic book, like this really big, large format comic book, which my older brother bought and which I read avidly. And at the end of the comic book version, it goes to great lengths to meticulously explain exactly what happens in that scene.
Okay.
And so there's a little narrative box which explains that the aliens have created a new species of human which is able to choose its own parents before it is born. And that's what the fetus in space is.
Oh, boy.
Which utterly ruins the mystery of that, which is also complete nonsense. I have no idea where they came up with this idea. I can only presume the editors at Marvel thought, we can't end on something ambiguous.
Oh my God.
Kids need a proper ending. You've got to do the ending right. And so they wrote their own spurious, made-up, ridiculous ending about a baby who can choose his parents.
Yeah, either I got it very wrong or they did. And I'd like to think they're the ones who got it wrong.
I think it's they. Right, I'm so furious about Dogtooth's ending now. I think we should go and eat more popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, how do you end a popcorn counter like this? I guess you just stop talking.
Just stop talking, I suppose. How do you like me now? How do you like me now?
How do you like me now?
How do you like me now?
How do you like me now?